Yeah.
Hey.
Hey, it's Cigar Saturday on bourbonblog.com. Matty Rock joining us from Sanja's there in New Jersey. And also our good friend, Jeff Borysiewicz. You know him, a good friend of ours and yours both. Corona Cigar Company founder and so much more. Of course, you see he has a great palm tree background there, doesn't he, Matty?
Yeah, that's the best way to start off. I feel it's the best way to start mocking us, right? So all you guys in New Jersey and Indiana, F you, welcome to the show.
Florida's a great place.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So what's happening there tonight there in Florida, my friend?
So getting ready to fire up a cigar, poured myself a glass of whiskey, and we're going to talk bourbon and we're going to talk cigars.
That's right. We're going to talk all kinds of great things. Matty, you know what? I decided I would get one of the FSGs, and of course, Jeff will tell us the story of FSG and the wonderful tobacco from his farm that he puts in there.
Because you get to call it the true that Florida tobacco gets its life again in the United States. That's a pretty cool thing. So obviously, the best person to tell you the story of that is the man who made it happen. So open mic, Jeff, on that one.
Yes.
So you whenever you want to dive right in, hit me with the questions. I'm an open book.
All right. Well, why don't we start there? I mean, we're going to talk about the barn smokers, which again, I'll be putting the website up. We should probably just tell everybody as we are starting up. The barn smoker tickets are on sale now, aren't they?
Yep. You could go to barnsmoker.com. Dates will come up. I believe my ADD is in there. I believe it's starting May 13th is when the festivities will begin. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. Like I said, very rarely, we're not just going to be at a farm. We're going to be at Jeff's farm, and you're going to be at the farm where you're actually smoking the tobacco that's in Jeff's sticks. So how cool is that? So you really, when you're talking about poor Jeff is going to be like, I've had enough of people after the barn smoker is done, because it's just going to be, Jeff, what's this? And where'd you come up with that, Jeff? And tell us more. So Jeff will be happy to see the back of our heads when we're at the end.
Listen, I love being around people, and when we're at the farm, it's just a real, we don't open up the farm for tours just because it's so much work to do that. So when we have the barn smokers, man, hit me with every question you got, because that's the time to do it. And I actually really enjoy it, because it's almost like a school field trip, man. You get to learn all kinds of stuff, whatever it is about growing cigar tobacco.
That's amazing. And again, this is the farm where some of the tobacco in the FSG comes from. Of course, there's so much to tell on the story. Why don't you go ahead and just tell us? Should we start with the story of FSG? And
yeah, so you're smoking the FSG original. It looks like a box press you've got there.
Right.
Yeah, that's the box press limited edition Toro. So we started the farm in 2013. Did a test crop. Drew Estate's always been a pioneer at seeing a vision on what's coming on. We started the farm more so just to bring something back. There's a little bit of Florida's got a long, rich history when it comes to cigar tobacco. In fact, I was just up in Havana, Florida, which is a town in Gadsden County, which is north of Tallahassee, and that was the primary growing region of cigar tobacco in Florida. But it was mostly shade. As a matter of fact, it was all shade tobacco. Florida was the second largest grower of shade tobacco after Connecticut. But just over time, the industry went away. There's 100 different reasons why it went away, but the bottom line is cost. Like anything else, growing cigar tobacco in Florida is no different than manufacturing in America or anything else that's very labor intense, which cigar tobacco is super labor intense. I mean, there's, when people talk about a premium hand rolled cigar, they say 300 pairs of hands have touched that cigar from the time the seed goes in the ground to the time we're actually smoking it. Probably 1/3 of those handling of it is done at the farm. So there's lots and lots of labor involved and lots of risk as well. So America, unfortunately, has outsourced that crop, with the exception of a few crops still in the U.S. Connecticut broadleaf's doing good. Pennsylvania broadleaf's still going. And burley's still going. But anything that's hand-picked, one leaf at a time, it's not done in America anymore, just because it's so much labor. But anyway, we wanted to bring it back in a small way. So think of our crop or our farm like a micro distillery, a true micro distillery, small scale, Small scale compared to what you see in Nicaragua and Honduras and Dominican Republic, where you got real big farms, but not necessarily small scale in what it used to be like in America. I was actually pretty surprised when I was up in Havana for that seminar I did at the Tobacco Museum. Some of the growers were there whose their fathers used to grow it. And most of the guys were actually growing 5, 10, 15 acres just because there was so much labor involved. So that's actually the average size farm that was in Florida growing shade. But like I say, we have a 20-acre farm, and we grow generally about 5 acres that we do 2 crops a year. And it's something unique, something different. We put a little twist on it, though. We don't do the shade-grown tobacco. Instead, we grow Cuban seed tobacco, because our farm is actually the closest farm to Cuba geographically. It's the same altitude as the growing region in Cuba, Pinar del Rio. So our climate and our growing season and types of tobacco, really it's best for Cuban seed tobacco, which is grown and harvested. It's grown full sun, but it's harvested 1 leaf at a time. And that's the way that tobacco is grown in Nicaragua and Honduras, in Dominican Republic. All the pretty much all the dark cigar tobacco is primed 1 leaf at a time, which means it's very expensive. It means you got to send a crew through the field 8 times per crop, sometimes 9, just for the harvest, by the way. That doesn't count all the suckering and topping and all the other stuff you do getting to that point of harvest. So it's a very labor-intensive process, but it's a labor of love. And it gave us something unique. Here's why we did it. Generations before us were able to smoke cigars made with this ingredient. Our tobacco doesn't taste like it's Cuban, doesn't taste like it's Dominican, doesn't taste like it's anywhere else. It's very similar to wine. When you take a grape varietal and move it from one country to the other, or one state to the other, Washington grapes are performed differently than California, or Argentina, or Chile, things like that. So when you move tobacco around the globe, even though the same seeds, your tobacco is going to taste different because your soils are different and everything's just a little different. Nothing's ever the same. So it's an ingredient that gives a unique flavor to any cigar that's blended in. And that's what our goal was. We didn't want it to taste like any other tobacco. If it did, why grow it? So that's why we have it. Something I like to call it the secret sauce that we put in a lot of different cigars and gives it a little different zing.
And that was the whole intention, was to not tip the hat to what had been done in other generations, to create something new. And again, it's a little bit of your tobacco, but the whole idea, the whole flavor, you were going for something different. When you started the process, I mean, did you have a flavor in mind? How do you go about a process like that?
So when you grow it, you never know what the tobacco is going to taste like. I mean, this could taste like a very mild, because you can take Cuban seed tobacco and grow it in different regions. Let's use Nicaragua for an example. Take the same seed variety. You can grow it up in Jalapa and it'll be a little bit sweeter. You can put it in Esteli and it's going to be super strong. These are different growing regions with different soils. You can grow it on Ometepe, which is an island there. It has a different flavor. So you can take that tobacco and it's going to taste different wherever you put it. So we had no idea what it was going to taste like. But at the end of the day, sort of like bourbon, it's coming out of different distilleries, right? You have parameters of the mash bill. You're going to, anything with a base of corn, a little rye, a little wheat, barley, it's going to have a bourbon flavor, right? As long as it's going through that same process.
Right.
But each one of those whiskeys is going to be a little different. So it's the same way with cigar tobacco. So we knew it's going to taste like cigar tobacco, that's for sure. But a couple things you don't know is you don't know how it's going to burn. You don't know what that characteristic is, because you can grow cigar tobacco that doesn't burn, and that's always a pain in the ass, especially for the cigar makers. When that cigar tobacco is exported from our farm to Drew Estate, Drew Estate's got to work it for a couple of years. There's a process here. You got to go through a fermentation, you got to go through an aging, and that fermentation process, the thicker the leaves are, the oilier the leaves are, the longer it's going to take. At the end of the day, you got to have a great flavor, you got to have great combustion. So it's a combination of a lot of different factors. But our tobacco, like I say, our farm is very similar to Cuba, but the soil is similar to Connecticut. We have sandy soil, so it kind of blends a little bit of both of those worlds. And when you roll a cigar, you make a blend of a cigar. Very rarely do you have a cigar that's all 100% one type of leaf. Now we do have one of those called an FSG farm roll, where we use tobacco that's we cure in the curing barn, put it in actually our bourbon barrels that we get from our single barrel bourbons. We pack them up, we let them sit in there for a couple of years, pull them back out, and then we make farm rolls out of them. So that's 100% FSG tobacco. It's unfermented, but it's cured and aged and has a very distinct flavor. A lot of people like them. Then when we make, for example, like the FSG you're smoking there, that's got a Connecticut broadleaf wrapper on it, and it's got filler from Nicaragua, and it's got filler from Honduras, and it's got filler from Florida. So that's very typical, not the Florida part, but it's very typical of any cigar. It's going to be a blend. And even if it's not a multi-country blend, it's usually a multi-region blend. So even if you had a cigar that's just from Nicaragua, generally there's going to be filler in there from Esteli. There's going to be some filler in there from Jalapa, and there's generally filler from Condega, which are the three main growing regions. There's another one in Ometepe. It's real small, though. It's on an island. But when you take those tobaccos from the three different growing regions, you blend a cigar. Because if you made a cigar straight up 100% with tobacco from Esteli, it's going to be real strong. Probably not going to burn very good either, because it's really heavy, thick tobacco. And you're going to need a wrapper from somewhere. It's probably going to come from Jalapa. That's where the thinner tobacco is. Or you're going to use like Drew Estate does in a lot of cigars, is using a broadleaf wrapper from Connecticut. So most of your, almost every single cigar in a humidor is a blend of tobacco from a region of different countries. And that's what makes it great. It's like when you make a nice big, you make a big hoagie or a big sandwich, man. You got the cheese, you got the pastrami, you got the roast beef, you got the ham. It's a combination of those flavors that comes together.
See, Jeff knows how to pay attention. Went right into the sandwich with the food.
Well, I see Sanj back there, and you guys are in New Jersey. And by the way, we have Jersey Mike's here. I don't know if you think they're any good there, but I think they're pretty damn good. They make a good Philly cheesesteak sandwich.
You tell me the next time you're up here, Jeff, and we'll leave guys along. But the next time you're up here, we'll take you to a hero place. We'll let you make the final decision.
All right.
Your hero will come from a bunch of guys that, hey, what do you want with that? Come on. You want some prosciutto de Parma? Come on.
Yeah. You guys call them heroes. We don't call them heroes here. People don't. You say hero here, you're thinking about Superman or something. But that's why we call them submarine subs.
We'll take that. Long as you like, a dirty Southie from up by. Listen, let me have a hoagie, you bastard.
Yeah.
As long as we don't hear that, we're Yankee fans can handle that.
No, it's the FSG delicious smoke. I've always enjoyed pairing it with a lot of good whiskeys. Some nice, just deep earth flavors. And let's talk about what each of us get on FSG. I actually chose. Here's what I chose to pair it with. To start with, I have the Jefferson's Reserve Old Rum Cask finish. I really like the Old Rum Cask finish.
Yeah, nice.
They do that. You probably have had this one, Jeff. They do it once or twice a year. A little tougher to find. Those sweet notes from the rum, I feel like really hit the cigar and really take kind of those deep chocolate notes against it and really bring something nice to life. But this one just is in a class all its own. I mean, there's so many nice, deep raisin notes, dark chocolate. What do you get on FSG? What do you that you're smoking?
So on the box press one that you're smoking, that's in my opinion, that's the fullest body FSG.
Yeah.
And that Connecticut broadleaf wrapper leads to that. So if anything to me, if you have it, for example, the other one is the traditional FSG, which uses a Brazilian Arapiraca Maduro wrapper. It looks like the same thing as the box press Toro as far as like color goes. Unless if you're looking real closely, you can tell the difference between broadleaf and Brazilian. But the broadleaf is sort of like, I like to think of it as more like a dark chocolate. And when you're smoking the FSG round, I consider that to be more like a cocoa, like a hot chocolate. You know what I'm saying? They're two different types of flavor there.
Yeah, and that one's a little bit more bittersweet than the other. No, I feel
exactly, yeah. And that's the box press one.
Yeah.
So that one has a little more of that bittersweetness to it, but and also that broadleaf one is a little stronger too. So if you want a fuller bodied cigar, that's a full bodied cigar. Real heavy mouthfeel too. The traditional FSG cigar, more of a medium bodied cigar with lots of flavor, but not as much of that strength that's going to not overpower anybody. So I'd say on a strength-o-meter, let's say 1 through 10, I'd give that box press when you're smoking, I think it's an 8. On the traditional FSG, I'd say it's around a 5. A few people think it's a little strong, but for me, that's just where it falls in the category, right in the middle. And then I'm smoking the one that were released for the Barn Smoker too. That's the 20 Acre Farm. Now this one is a totally different flavor profile. This was more of the milder to medium, with a lot of mouthfeel and flavor to it, but none of those heavy spice or any type of not much nicotine strength to it either. So it's a cigar that's more balanced for folks, that covers a wider spectrum. So I'd suggest when you start with this, and you can build up to the other ones. But I'm really enjoying. I'm smoking the Bellicoso right now. I smoked the 660 last week, and I got to tell you, I called Willie Herrera up and I said, Willie, man, this 660 is freaking awesome. And I got to tell you what it tastes like. To me, that 660 tastes just like a farm roll that I get when I visit one of my friends' places in Cuba. It's got a real balanced, milder. It's not like a strong Cuban cigar, but more like a real mild aged Cuban cigar. That's what that one's like.
Like where you get the sweet saltiness, right? So when
yes.
Cigars, you get the sweetness and the saltiness in the back of the draw. So yep.
And the 660 really tastes different. I don't know if you've smoked in between the Robusto and the Bellicoso, but the 660 has a really, man, that thing was amazing. I've smoked a few of those since then too, and they've been consistently like that. So nice. It's not normally a cigar I pick up because of this. It's a little big for me, but man, that thing was really good.
I'm going to ask you that I don't see you smoking 60 ring gauges a lot. I've done the Bellicoso, and it has a good balance, but that's interesting what you just said on the 60, because again, I'm the thinner ring gauge kind of guy. Coronas, Lanceros. I'm puffing on Assange's Lancero right now. I like the thinner ring gauges to grab the wrapper, but the fact that you're smoking the 60 now it looks like I'm gonna put the Bellicoso back down and try the 60.
Yeah.
And again, the one you're smoking right now is which one then?
This is the Bellicoso. So this is the 25th anniversary. That's the one that has the cedar wrapper on it. So that's generally the size I've been smoking. But like I said, the 660 was something else. And if I had one of those in front of me, which I don't, I have a box of Bellicosos in front of me. That's with the 20 Acre Farm. Sanj, I hope you got this for sale, right? So.
Very nice, very nice. And again, any questions for Jeff, ask them down below. Let's talk about some of his cigars, and also if you've ever been to Corona, tell us any memories you have from there. You started Corona. How many years ago has it been that you started Corona?
So 1996. So I started Corona Cigar out of my house, an extra bedroom there, and it started out as a mail order catalog company. And I printed my first one. Actually, before that, I ran classified ads for a free cigar catalog. So that's how the company got started. I started on a shoestring budget. It was me and my partners, MasterCard, Visa, and then Discover and American Express joined the company later. So that's how it started. So so that's how that was 25 years ago. From there, we advanced up into online sales, and then really once I started traveling to Nicaragua, I wanted to have a real nice retail cigars store that kind of had the energy and the feel of Nicaragua. I really enjoyed Nicaragua. I think that it's a beautiful country. The people are amazing, and prior to that, just the cigar stores and cigar clubs were kind of stuffy, a little country club feel, which just wasn't quite me. Certainly, it's not Drew Estate. I mean, Drew Estate was gone against the grain since they started. But to be honest with you, if you look at what the cigar industry was before, I mean, Drew Estate was like a total anomaly. This wasn't the graffiti art and all that other kind of stuff. That's not what the cigar industry was. The cigar industry before that was, Macanito, Partagas, Oida Monterey, old school type of, just traditional, very traditional type of brands, So the industry is totally different now than what it was in 1996 and through 2000. But it's much more diverse now, which I love, and there's a lot of energy in where we're at now, and it's really done well as far as being. And if the industry didn't change like it did in the 2000s, it would have what I call generation out, which is sort of that was happening in the bourbon industry before the revitalization of the bourbon industry. You know, people that were drinking, you know, Wild Turkey 101 and that kind of stuff, and Jim Beam White, you know, it wasn't really going anywhere. But then once you had, what I saw first is that was the single malt Scotch. I'd say, I don't want to call it boom, but that's where we were really focusing on, was on single malt Scotches in our bars. And then bourbons kind of took off after that. And the bourbon industry looks nothing like what it did 12 years ago. It was rare to see age statements on certain bottles. It was rare to actually even see single casks. Most of the stuff that was out there was, you know, batched, vatted, and then slowly it went to some private select type of stuff. And then it started moving into some single barrels. And we were real fortunate to be involved in the brown spirit world back in 2008 when we had a real big store in downtown Orlando, a huge bar with all kinds of crazy whiskeys. And so we were early adapters to that. And as a matter of fact, bourbon, you know what the big competition was back then in the 2000s? It was flavored vodka. Everybody was selling freaking flavored vodka. You know, there was a bunch of different brands of it too. And so so the bourbon guys had a hard time. Same thing with single malt Scotch guys. They had a hard time getting. There's a lot of competition for a back bar in a restaurant or in a bar. So most of these guys were wanting to fill it up with flavored vodkas, and then, you know, you had your staples of other products. But you know, the industry of both the spirits and cigars has changed and adapted in a good way.
Yes, yeah, it really has. We started Bourbon Blog about 16 years ago, and just a couple years after that, it really got going. And to see how it, you know, it's like you were saying, the single barrels, single casks. I mean, it's been a phenomenal journey to see what those have done. You have quite a few single barrel expressions. You've done probably countless at Corona, haven't you?
Yeah, we're probably up to close to 100. There's an advantage to being early on this stuff. Like I said, there's sort of like this old Barbara Mandrell song. We were country when country wasn't cool, but we were bourbon when bourbon wasn't cool.
Right.
And I'll give you a story that you've been doing a blog for a long time. So Sazerac, when they came in, they were just releasing Buffalo Trace back then, and they had Blanton's and they had Pappy Van Winkle and they had Eagle Rare, and almost no one heard a lot of those brands, to be honest with you. You had Sazerac Rye, which was probably their most common one or famous brand. So we actually used to be able to get as much Pappy as we wanted. I brought in Pappy Van Winkle because it looked cool with the guy smoking a cigar on it, right? And it had an age statement on it, which when we're selling expensive single malt whiskeys, you know, the Scottish whiskeys always had age statements, and people can equate age with value and price. You know, the older it is, the more expensive it is. So it was really easy for us to adapt to that one. You know, Eagle Rare had a 10 and all these others. But so we were real early on that stuff. And then the first single barrel program, actually Jack Daniels was doing. So you had the Jack Daniels single barrel, then you could, you know, as a retailer or a bar, you pick your own barrels. Then soon after that, the very first bourbon one that became available to us was Four Roses. Believe it or not, they were way ahead of everybody else. Four Roses single barrel. Not only did they have the barrel selections, but you know, you had your different mash bills that you could pick. You had your different yeasts that you could pick. So when you combine single barrels, when you're flipping around your different yeasts and your different mash bills, there's a lot of different combinations you can have. So Four Roses was actually ahead of the game. After that, some other companies started getting into it, and then after that, tequila started getting into it. And there's a few, and actually we got a couple cognacs that are doing it now too. So we've kind of gone through that. The only one that has been not a little slow, but it's a little harder to do, are single barrel cask selections of the scotches. But also at the same time, that can be very expensive when you start buying barrels of aged old scotch too. And so it's a little harder for them to ship that stuff over that way. But anyway,
right.
But it's been we pick all of our barrels and all of our whiskeys. I don't care whether it's the tequila, whether it's the cognac, or whether it's the bourbons. They're all with one thing in mind: pairing it with a cigar. How does it taste with a cigar? And that makes a big difference, because you can have a cigar. You can have let's take a bourbon, for example, where it may taste fantastic on its own, but you pair a cigar with it, you might lose a lot of those flavors, because it's not like you're pairing it with potato chips. You're pairing it with something pretty heavy here.
Yeah.
That your palate's got a lot going on. So let's put the two together, and that's what we do. And and the funny thing is, I like to pair or do the barrel selections. Believe it or not, I like to do them in our on location at Corona Cigar. A lot of the distillers like us doing it in Kentucky, so we got to go up there. But if you want to see people get freaking excited, try lighting up a cigar around a barrel house, man.
They don't want you to do that, right?
Oh my God, that place, they don't want to set the place on fire. So you'll get them just put an unlit cigar in your mouth gets them antsy, which we do, but they understand. But at least when we're picking barrels in my office, we can smoke cigars with it and really put them together. And then the other problem is not really a problem, but when you're selecting barrels in the barrel house, there's an aroma of whiskey in there. It's much like when you walk into a cigar factory. You smell tobacco. And the same way when you're blending cigars, I don't like blending cigars or validating or tasting them in the factories. Because I can tell you right now, you can smoke a cigar in Drew Estate's factory in Nicaragua, or anybody's factory. You take it back home, it won't taste the same. And it's because the cigar didn't change. What changed was the environment you're in. A lot of people don't realize this, but for example, once you land in Nicaragua, you'll smell. It smells different than when you took off from. I'll tell you right now, it smells different in New Jersey. You're going to smell.
I think Newark is a bad idea, though, Jeff. Everyone else doesn't. Newark doesn't smell very good. To that one. Correct.
When you're in Esteli or in any of those countries, though, they used to cook a lot with wood, so there would always be like a campfire smell in the air there. And then when you go into the factories, you're going to smell nothing but tobacco. And once you've been working in a cigar factory for a few hours, you don't even notice it anymore, because your sensory factor's turned off for that smell. So that's why it's best to actually taste the cigars or taste the whiskey away from the areas where they're made. So sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's not. And in a lot of cases of the single barrel whiskeys, it's not. The reason being is that, for example, we were just up there a couple weeks ago, and we were in the one of the rack houses for the Pull and Russell reserve samples over at the Wild Turkey Distillery. I mean, literally, it's just freaking 30 barrels laid out, man. And you're just, taking that thief, pulling that whiskey out, tasting it, seeing what you like, move on to the next barrel and the next barrel and the next barrel. So you kind of need, it's not that easy to pull a bunch of samples if you got to send them back to Orlando. But so there is some pluses on that. Same thing with like Four Roses. When we do that, 10 different barrels we're going through to pick one. So you are running through a bunch of barrels. And you have that luxury. It's like, hey man, like if you're peerless or whatever, if you want, we'll drill a hole in another one and taste them. So you have a lot of flexibility when it comes to that. But listen, these guys, these master distillers, they know what they're doing. So when we tell them to pull samples, we'll give them flavor profiles and let them know what we're looking for. They know which barrels and which part of the warehouses generally produce barrels that we're talking about. If you want something real spicy and hot, they generally go to the top, the top floors. And that's not what we're asking for, by the way. So we, they know which parts of their warehouses produce which kinds of flavor profiles for the most part.
They know what you're after, and I think what you say is so true about taking the time to actually take some of those whiskey samples away from the distilleries. I mean, I know one of the very first times we did an on-site shoot with we did a sort of a short documentary pulling samples with Four Roses back when Jim Rutledge was there. I mean, this was early on when not too many people were doing this. I mean, how mellow, how low those Four Roses drink, and this was pretty young in my career at doing this. I mean, it's trying to go through 10 of those and really decide what you want. is not easy.
Well, they have a lab there too at Four
Yeah.
Roses, so they know which recipes kind of are going to lean to what you're looking for.
Right.
So for the most part, we're always able to, Rutledge would pull, once we went up there and did it, then from there on, we're like, hey, pull us samples that are in this flavor profile and ship them down. But there's still a lot of these guys are requiring you to go back up there. So that's all right. We like
They
going,
want
hey,
you to
man.
be there. They want
Yeah.
you to-
Listen, it's fun. It's fun. We'll go drink whiskey and have a nice steak dinner at Jeff
Yeah.
Ribby's. And,
Oh yeah. I
right?
see. Tommy just commented. Friends with Tommy as well. He said 100. We've probably done over 300. Jeff, he's wanting you to know.
We probably have, but I'm saying 100 different expressions or more.
100 different expressions. All
no,
right.
seriously, there's a lot
No,
of.
I know.
And one of the things that we're running into is allocations. It's like, hey man, we can only get you one barrel a year, or on some stuff, like there's some of these we're having even split with other people in the state, like Burn Steakhouse and stuff,
Right.
just because they're rare. But the cool thing is, we'll at least get it.
Right. I saw you had posted some photos the other day, or was it earlier in April? You were doing Willits. You were doing a Peerless that you said tasted like, was it like a Manhattan? Is that what you were saying?
The rye. I don't know what it is, but about the Peerless rye.
Yeah.
There's no other rye whiskey that tastes like that.
Oh, there really isn't. I agree.
I'm getting feedback. I don't know if you're getting it too. It sounds like it's cleared up. Yeah, it's cleared up. But the Peerless rye, I don't know what does this, but their rye has it already tastes sweet. I don't know how and why, but it tastes sweet coming right out of the barrel. You drop a cherry in it, boom,
it's like it is. Yeah. It's
right?
serious. It already has kind of that back note of what you would have on. We're big fans, actually, as you mentioned, that the Peerless, I grabbed it. I'm sure you've had the double oak. I'm a big fan of the double oak.
We have that as well. Now it's limited, so it's a little harder to find.
Yeah.
But they're I just think that rye is perhaps
so beautiful.
the most unique in if anybody's shy of rye, try the Peerless. That's the one to jump to.
It's not like every other rye.
No, it's not a burn the back of your throat and scalp your palate type of rye, which there are plenty of those that are like that. But you can drink that Peerless rye neat, and it's like, whoa, that's good.
Oh, agreed. It's the rye is one of my favorite things to have with a cigar. I love the single barrels, and I love this new double oak. I thought I'd try this with the FSG, and it's really working nicely. It's such a bold, and I've always said since they came out with it almost a year ago, it tastes so much older than it is. I just love the age.
It does. It is. I think you summed it up though by saying it's much bolder than any other Peerless too. So people that like that bold flavor profile, that double oak's good. But from what I understand, I don't know if that's always available though. I mean, no, they're a little short on some of that.
It's a little bit more limited. And as you were talking about allocated bourbons, whiskeys, how's that been for you? I mean, obviously you've had relationships early on, but what have you seen the last several years as far as what you've been hoping to get more of, or what people have come in asking for with a cigar?
Well, COVID shut down most of these single barrels. As a matter of fact, when we were over there a couple weeks ago, we were the first guys to be back at Woodford in 2 years. That's the first barrel selection they did, period. So that morning, as a matter of fact, it was the first day they even opened the visitor center when we were there. So yeah, it's been a little dry. And then, tequila's we have a Patron single barrel as well. Nice. That's aged in the American oak used bourbon barrels. That's been hard to come by. So there's a lot of that stuff that's it's backed up. Now, what's pretty cool though, we were able to move a lot of whiskey during the shutdowns because we did a lot of packages. Now listen, these guys aren't stupid. Sazerac is the one that's not stupid on this stuff, right? They got a big portfolio. There's some stuff that bourbon guys like, and there's some stuff that bourbon guys will just toss in the trash or give it to somebody. They're not drinking Fireball and all that other stuff. But that's what pays the bills, So these guys at Sazerac were doing a lot of packages, saying, listen, bring this, sell it to the customers as a package. We're good to go. And so Tommy over in our Tampa store was just, and they had a lot of good whiskey out there flowing where people are, everybody's always, you can get Blantons and all this other stuff. Yeah, we have single barrel Blantons. We don't sell it by the bottle. We used to, but not anymore. But when we do these packages, you could that. You could, if you want the Blantons, you're gonna have to get the other stuff from Sazerac. Because listen, I don't blame them. They got a portfolio of whiskey. You've been in a distillery. They got to keep that still flowing, right? And there's a lot of other whiskeys that come out of there.
Yes, that's true. Any questions for Jeff? Ask away down below. We're enjoying the conversation, talking whiskey, single barrels, FSG. Again, we want to remind you once again that those barn smokers are coming up only about a month away, Matty. I think our first one's just about a month from today, right?
And oddly enough, Jeff can tell you about the first barn smoker in the portfolio for this year, which will be at Jeff's farm. So Jeff is going to be able to tell you a little bit about the experiential you're going to see there. And like I said, the reason that I love these barn smokers so much, and I think it's very important for the industry and for the consumers to see, you're really watching the birth of the entire product, right? You're literally going from seed to cigar. So you're going to have the opportunity to literally see how this came about, what goes into it, how much hard work there is, harvest. I mean, there's just so much that goes into it. It's easy to talk about, but actually seeing it, witnessing it, being part of that, and watching how the process works, I think the appreciation, and it's something you could do multiple, and every time you do it, your brain is just equally as blown, because you're just seeing just really how much goes into it, and how much most people take the process for granted, how you get that finished product. And I think I'll let Jeff pick up with it on here, because each farm that you go to is going to be a very different experience on how you get to cigar from seed to cigar.
So when you mention that, thing that comes to my mind is, man, we only got a month. I got a lot of work to get done. So barn smokers are fun. There's a lot of work. So what's interesting too, this is, believe it or not, it's the weird part. You can try and schedule barn smokers to have your farm and the crop looking like how you want it to look when the barn smoker dates happen. But there's a saying in the cigar industry that Arturo Fuente Cigars, that's their motto. It says, we never rush the hands of time. You know why when you're a farmer, why you don't rush the hands of times? Because Mother Nature won't let you. Doesn't matter. So we have, for example, there were some unseasonable cold fronts that came through Florida. Didn't cause any crop damage, but what it does is it stops the growth for about a week. Because when you get we had a 40-degree, was it 2 weeks ago? It was like 40 degrees, and that's unseasonably cold. And what that'll do is the plant will just kind of shut itself off. It just it's like a lizard when it's cold out, right? He just stops moving because he can't move anymore, right? Till he warms up and gets those nutrients flowing again. So yeah, we're looking forward to it. I don't know if we're going to be hopefully I'll have some leaves that we can hang at that point, because the crop's running almost probably 2 to 3 weeks later than what was anticipated, just because of the cold fronts. Even when I was in the nursery or the greenhouses, these guys were 3 weeks late getting the seedlings to us. But that's, again, they had 18-degree weather when those seedlings were in the greenhouse, and even when they run the heaters, it takes it to 50 degrees. The 50 degrees kind of stops it. So a lot like bourbon too. Weather has an effect on that. That's why Woodford, when we were over there, they heat their warehouses to keep that whiskey maturing quickly. And that's why in Scotland it takes a long damn time to mature whiskey, because it gets cold up there, and it's dark and cold, and they're using refill barrels, so it's a very slow process. But that's the beauty of farming and cigars and tobacco and whiskey. These are natural products that really the expression comes through basically by nature. You know what I mean? By whether you're at 5,000 feet above sea level, or let's say you're Lefroy right at sea level. Same way on tobacco farms. Whether you're up in the higher, in Esteli where they're growing it, they're hitting 1,200 to 1,500. Actually, you get the jalapeno 12 to 1,500 feet above sea level. We're at 105. So there's a big difference in climate when you're changing altitude. So anyway, everybody learns to work with the climate that we're in, and that's what gives us different stuff. So Barn Smoker is a great time for people to come smoke cigars. Let me tell you, the camaraderie is crazy too. It's a great time to be around other guys smoking cigars. And Drew Estate's got some crazy activations this year too. A lot of stuff that, without having Barn Smoker for the last 2 years, actually it's it's kind of like a circus this year. There's a lot of little, like, here you come to this stop and then this stop and this stop. So it's really pretty cool. So looking forward to hosting it. And it's a 2-day event this year because we wanted to spread the crowds out over 2 days, because we didn't, kind of didn't know what was happening as far as like social distancing or whatever else. So it's a 2-day event this year. So it's so we can have a little more space on each day.
Yeah, it looks like 14th and 15th is when it's going to be. And if you want tickets, Matty says, well, there's still some left, not tons, but some, right?
Still some left. So run your boat over to barnsmoker.com. Make sure you grab your tickets there. And another thing I think we should probably talk about is Jeff has multiple locations too. So when you're in town, Jeff, tell them about, obviously the flagship is in Orlando, but Jeff, tell them about the other stores that they can go hang out while they're visiting.
Yeah, so fortunately, we're in a great state where people love to travel to. So we have 3 stores in Orlando. It doesn't matter where you're in Orlando. A lot of people think downtown Orlando is downtown Disney, but it's not. We have an actual downtown Orlando. So we have one right downtown right on the main street. Across the street is like City Hall and all that good stuff. So we got and that, by the way, if you're into drinking bourbon, you want an awesome cocktail and the best people watching in Orlando, by far, that's the place to go. Just sit there out front, get on one of the rocking chairs, try and get your table, and just watch the people going by. It's pretty cool. So yeah. So anyway, that's a great place to have a nice whiskey. And then up on the north side of town, there's a place called Lake Mary Heathrow. Beautiful store that's in more of a local type of community. Always busy. A lot of locals hanging out there. And then we have the one on Sand Lake Road, which is the one I go to mostly. And that's kind of closer to the tourist area, but still, Orlando's got a big, diverse group. So I don't care even if you're in a tourist area. I'll give you an example. Where my son goes to high school, right across the street's Universal Studios. So you can see the roller coasters over the high school, right? So I mean, so Orlando's like where there's literally communities mixed in with all the tourist stuff. So and then in Tampa, we've got our Davidoff store there, right in one of the coolest like restaurant row area of Tampa. So we got you covered. Then we got another one opening up in Sarasota, hopefully later this year. That'll be a great spot too, right in downtown Sarasota. We're packing that thing full of whiskeys and be another great place to enjoy a cigar.
Will that look somewhat like the one in Tampa? Is that the idea?
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Okay, great. We spent some time in the one in Tampa and Orlando and always enjoy being in there. So maybe later this year we'll be seeing the one in Sarasota popping up.
So you've been to the Tampa store too there. So yes. We can put a hurtin on a wallet there with whiskey if you.
It has to be one of the best collections in that region. I mean, it's a massive collection and such rare, interesting stuff there.
Yeah, especially when you get into the single malts. I mean, we got some really expensive old stuff. If you're looking for like a Balvenie 50, we got it. If you're looking for one of the old Macallans, whether it's the Lalique stuff or these, these 1968 vintage and all that kind of stuff, we've got some really, really old and very expensive whiskey. Right, I mean, that's single malts have gone way up over the last. You know what? They've actually been a really good investment. I wish I'd have bought more of those bottles when they came out with those 55s and 60s and all these other ones. Instead of buying one, heck, we should have bought 5.
Should have bought, yeah. You should have got several. But you got them several years ago, didn't you?
Yeah, and they now it's like, man, you gotta like get in practically a freaking fist fight to try and get one of these, and even then you won't get one. It's like because we're like #1 Macallan account in the country, but these things are, these old Macallans. There's a global demand for these things, and so if they make it over here, you got Las Vegas, New York, and Miami. You got 3 markets that we've always got to try and compete, and so yeah, it's they're getting harder and harder to come by, and much more expensive.
Oh yeah, they really are.
The Chinese auctions don't help us on that. I can tell you that's what drives it up. Seriously, you look at these whiskey, they're like, this one sold for $3 million, and so then that's okay. Next year, this thing's going to cost a hell of a lot more.
That's your oh shit moment, and I think what we're talking about with all the different locations too. So I think it's probably a fair mention that hopefully we finally have COVID in the rear view. So I think people looking to do events and stuff, Jeff, can they get hold of you? See what your locations work for, what kind of events? Because like we said towards the middle of the show, I think people are really looking to get out there again and to be around other people and get in the mix again.
Florida's been happening since we've been wide open for over a year. So Florida's been sort of an oasis for the rest of the country. And I got to tell you, though, the airports are packed right now. You know, you got Easter, when it's spring break and everything else around here. And I've never seen it quite so busy. So it's in hotels everything's booked and busy. And we've been that way. So it's good to see. You know, it's really good to see. And when people come here, they're like, wow, they're like, you know, they're just smiling. They're like, this is nuts, but in a good way, because they haven't been able to do that in a while.
So if people want to reach out to you, Jeff, is the best way through your social media, Jeff's social media, Corona Cigar. What's the best way for folks to reach out to you if they
because if you go to the general email box at like Corona, I won't see that. But if you Facebook Messenger, I always look at that, or do a post on something on my Facebook or something. I'm always monitoring that. So yeah, I like to foray into a lot of different subjects on that, but that's all right. That's part of fun for me.
Excellent. No, it's great to have you on here, Jeff. And again, show us what I think you were showing us right before the show, but show us what you're sipping on there. It's something really unique.
Yeah. So remember, I was telling you we're way ahead of the time, and I remember when so Jimmy Russell, when they had you can see where he signed it right there. This is the old man, by the way. So he actually celebrated his birthday in our store one time. We were doing a whiskey tasting.
Wow.
So Wild Turkey did something called American Spirit, 15-year-old. And at the time, this was wild. So the guy from the distributor said, Jeff, you need to load up on this. I'm telling you right now, you need to load up on this because people don't know what it is. And so I think we bought like 90 cases of it, which was all the allocation for Florida, period. And so we hung on to it. And it was like a couple of years later, people realized what it was. And then obviously it sold out real quick after that. But when I tell you, you know, people just didn't understand what was going on with some of these aged bourbons. And they took it for granted too, that, oh yeah, we'll be able to get 15-year-old bourbon. No, you're not. You know what I'm saying? So that was really cool. And especially, you know, that was his cherry pick out of the whole distillery, you know. Right. So that was something cool. So I'm probably going to finish this bottle. I only got a little bit left. But yeah, that's why I popped it out. I'm like, let's hit this thing and yeah, enjoy it.
Delicious. Yeah, it is a delicious one. And some of those really old ones from Wild Turkey that have come out on limited editions have just been so beautiful. Is Wild Turkey one of your favorites to pair with cigars? Do you have any?
No, actually, I bounce around. I mean, you know what else is really cool? There's a private select of Maker's Mark that we do that no one else does. Super unique. And when you do the private select with them, you basically come up with your own recipe of the staves that you hang in the barrels. Right. And so for us, it's pretty cool. They, you know, because we want to pair with cigars, we do all mocha staves and we put a couple French oaks in there. Everybody, then they're like, yo, can you change that recipe? Because they were wanting to get rid of that stave. Because we're like, so we went back up there and tasted all their new staves. Guess what? We picked the exact same recipe blind on the staves again. Yeah. And they were like, dude, how'd you do that? I said, it wasn't intentional. I'm just telling you, this is the best. This is the best combo for cigars. So we still do that. So like, you know, Maker's 46 has its own stave selection, and all the other private selects, but ours is truly unique, just a Corona cigar. So there's a lot of cool things that we do. And I still think our Four Roses are extremely unique too, just because of the, you know, when you get down to the different mash bills and yeasts. Yeah. And you know what? I'm not a huge tequila guy, but freaking Patron distiller is amazing. And the fact when they offered us the single barrel Patron using the refill American oak bourbon barrels, that added it's an añejo, by the way, too. So it's already got that rich aged taste to it. But in a single cask, it really makes it. It's almost like a whiskey Patron. It's pretty cool. But we don't have it right now. So we got to get these guys back in action. You know, there's some glass shortages and all that kind of stuff. We'll work through it. But anyway, yeah, we got some really unique stuff. And so heck, one time we had this Russell's Reserve, so good. Man, we got it in. It was like freaking 68 bottles. I'm like, how do we get 68 bottles out of a barrel? And Jimmy Russell was like, hey, man, that's because somebody was probably drinking on you before they barreled it up, or bottled it up. And I'm like, well, that because, you know, so some picks are just off the chart. So, but anyway, it's a lot of fun. And you know, nothing's ever 100% the same year, you know, barrel to barrel. They're all a little different.
All of those I love, all great brands. Yeah, and I agree. Patron and some of the tequilas can often be really good pairing. Some of the older, more unique barrels. Anything that has surprised you, any type of spirit that has gone better with a cigar than you thought it would?
Yeah, that Macau single barrel cognac that we do. This thing is really special. I mean, this thing tastes like it's 10 times the price, by the way. Yeah, if you get a chance, taste that. That's a single barrel cognac that we do. And it is really, really good.
And it's a single barrel that you can only get there.
Yeah, you can buy Macau, but this single barrel we do,
different
man,
than Macau.
It's delicious in the same way that Peerless Rye is delicious.
Wow.
It's in that same type of thing where it's the sweetness and ready to go, and it's like, wow,
well balanced.
Yeah, well balanced, and it tastes real old.
I like that. I like it when it tastes even older than it is. So this is going to be so much fun seeing you next month, tasting some great whiskeys along with your cigars, seeing your farm there in Florida. And again, the way to, if you're going to be traveling to Florida, you're in Florida, it's worth making the journey just for this, because a lot of people come from all over, don't they?
They do. I mean, we get people from Hawaii and Canada and things like that. But listen, it's, you know, Orlando's a great place to visit. So you spend a couple days at the farm or the cigar stores, but then there's tons of other stuff to do. Everybody knows that. There's more stuff to do in Orlando than you'll have time for.
You're lucky you'll see Mickey come stumbling in drunk with a cigar into one of Jeff's stores. You know.
Yeah, that happens sometimes.
That happens occasionally, doesn't it? Barnsmoker.com is the place to get the tickets, and because people haven't had a chance, this is the first time. And is it 2 years, Matty? We've been doing them.
Yeah, man. Okay, 2 years. Like I said, it'll be good to get the band back together, if you will. Everybody's really looking forward to it. We're not going to mention anything else, but there's new experiential elements that are added to this year. Like, we're blessed enough to have Jeff as not just as our partner, but as our friend and being on the farm. So the additional history that you get of the brand and what Jeff has done and what Drew Estate has done together in the same place, and now you're getting great food and great spirits and great cigars. So again, anybody who's thinking about doing it, I highly suggest you check it out now. Tickets probably around already 70-75% done. So if it's something you're thinking about doing, I suggest you think faster, go down there, grab your tickets, and it's going to be a blast. Very much looking forward to it. And a very, very, especially for people who've never done it, it's a very, very unique experience that you're not going to really get anywhere else. And like I said, everything is so well-rounded. The knowledge that you get out of it, it's everything. It's an education that you receive, learning how this all comes to be, the camaraderie, the friendship, and everything kind of rolled up into one. So especially if you've never done it, highly suggest it. And the people who've already done it, come back every year.
We're looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing you there, Jeff and Matty, and to all the folks that we know are going to be coming. And thanks, everybody. It's so good to see Tommy Watch and John, Charlie, all the great folks. Will, thanks for tuning in. Chip, everybody, thanks for sharing this, liking this. Even if you watch it later, share this, like it, spread the word. And thanks for joining us tonight, Jeff, and for bringing along some delicious bourbon and conversation.
You're welcome. We'll do this in person.
Looking forward to it. Matty, what are we looking at next week? Do we?
It's going to be a lot of fun too. So everybody's this Pig Beach. So we will have Matt and Shane from Pig Beach on next week. So again, keeping it some of our core favorite things. We're going to be talking some barbecue and burgers and the Food Network guys. So it's going to be a lot of fun stuff. You're going to learn a lot about Pig Beach and the shows that they throw up there, which is huge in the barbecue community. And, you know, like I said a long time ago, barbecue and New York and New Jersey were never synonymous, right? And now that you have our people that are actually going down to the South and the Southwest and winning barbecue just you saw my post before, Tom, you were playing, like, you have Cho, who's on, Battle Bobby Flay was just on Rachel Ray. At our charity event, you have Ed Randolph from Handsome Devil, who's a couple or was in Florida. And, to wrestle away barbecue championships from down south, not an easy thing. And he came home with the belt. Look, Jeff's still like, get out of here with barbecue in New York. Stay home, you bastard. But I'm telling you, Jeff, come up here, bring some stretchy pants, man. First thing, we got to get a real grinder, and then we're going to take you to barbecue. Because Jeff has that look. He's like, I don't think I'm buying what you're selling, Rock, but I'm telling you, Jeff.
All right. I've never experienced that. If I went to New Jersey, that's not what I'd be looking for. But I will say this, listen, I always say, when you're in a steakhouse, you eat steak. But if I'm going up to your neck of the woods, I want to find a damn awesome pizza joint, because you guys got the best pizza. I'm telling you, Orlando pizzas can't touch the pizza you guys have. But, it may not sound sophisticated, but that's what I want when I go there.
So I took Tom to Kinchley. So the Pizza Pope voted it, number one over
enjoyed Kinchley's
pizza. So we'll go to Pizziola. We'll go to Brooklyn Pizza. So you'll be in pizza heaven, but we'll take you to some of the barbecue joints so you can have a fun time.
As long as we can serve that barbecue on a bagel, that's probably the real combination.
Good, I look like that's a done deal.
Barbecue brisket bagel. All right, there. Well, let's in.
What he just said. Show barbecue bagel brisket. We listen. Shows out.
There's some ideas.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, much love. Thanks for tuning in. We will catch you next week. Jeff, thanks so much, brother. We appreciate having you on and having your time. Thank you, brother.
Jeff.
All right, thanks,
Matty,
guys. I'll see you soon.
Everybody watching. Cheers. All right. Cool.